Hey guys, it's Super here. So today we finally are getting around to doing our legendary tier list. So for today's tier list, I want to just first make clear that I'm not going through every single legendary hero. There are simply too many legendary heroes in the game to go through every single one. And 80% of legendary heroes really aren't good at all. So today's legendaries that we'll be covering is legendaries that have some form of use in the game. This may be content in the early game, or of course up to the strong characters that we use in the late game. But any character which does have a use, I will put inside this tier list. So because we are not covering every single legendary hero, but rather ones which do have a use, I just want to say that characters in D tier still definitely are usable, especially by newer players. And if you are a new player with a character which is in D tier, you still should and build those characters. If you do not have a better options, they will still do very well. As for characters like in the higher tiers, like S+ tier, I'm reserving S+ tier for characters which excel in both PvP and PvE. So this tier list will combine characters' effectiveness and usage in both areas of content. And for the remaining tiers, of course, as we go down the list, there will be less use and less strong. And S tier may be safe for characters which are either just decently strong overall or excel in one specific type of content. And besides that, I won't be covering limited time heroes. I've already made a separate video for limited time heroes, and if we were to fit them all into one list, limited time heroes will mostly be like a SS tier and SSS tier. So I don't want to overly complicate this tier list and focus specifically on the regular legendary heroes. Besides that, I have chosen to exclude mythic heroes. I've already made a video also covering the best mythic heroes to get, but I have however included elemental city heroes. So anyway, let's just get right into it. Alright, so let's get right into it, and we'll start off with Hazondra. So Hazondra is a character that most players should get early on within the first week of their game, and they can earn up to 3 additional copies, although for that quest, it is quite difficult to complete, especially if you are a free-to-play player. But regardless, Hazondra is a pretty solid HP burn damage dealer at the earlier stages. Of course, now he's outclassed by many other HP burn characters, but that's not to say that he's weak by any means. Especially in the early game, he will be very useful in clearing dungeons, Tower of Mark, and other early game content. So I'm gonna put him in D tier. We'll see this makes sense when we add the other characters. They'll be much better than Hazondra, but Hazondra is still a very solid early game option. Next we have Focus, I believe, and Focus is a very solid PvP option in the early game. He has damage immunity, if we can take a look. Let's take a look at the gallery. And he does have team-wide Immortal for 1 turn, so very similar to Nordak, except that Nordak is for 2 turns, and that 1 additional turn does make a very significant difference. And regardless, having team-wide Immortal is very useful. And we do have this Divine Prayer skill, which is very similar to Big Jack's Special 2, giving an ally turn meter 100%, so they can just instantly take a turn. So 2 very nice skills, which is very useful in PvP content, but he is a very early game hero, and he will fall out of your team pretty quickly. So still a decent early game PvP option, but he is a D tier hero. Next we have Magdi, and Magdi is poison support. He gives shield, he gives deep poisoning as well, and lots of buffs that you just generally want on your poison team. He is still used in most areas, however I think he's recently been replaced with Kalana. So just to go through, deep poisoning 2, he has consolidation 2, which is nice, this toxic gas buff as well, and his shield. So overall, lots of support for your team, which is very good to have, and still a very good hero to use nowadays, just that we've recently gotten a better option. So he goes in B tier. And next we have Diemo and Indra, and I'll rank them together. So anyone who's heard about this combination will know that Diemo and Indra are simply amazing for PvE content. With both of them combined, they quite possibly are the strongest damage dealers you can use for PvE content, perhaps besides something like Marie. And they are a core duo that is required to clear quite a lot of bosses in late game content such as Demon Conquest. So this is a must-have combo you need to have if you want, or rather as you approach the late game. And they are definitely PvE focused. So Neither of these characters excel particularly individually, but combined they are really strong. And in PvP, neither of them are that exceptional. Dianmu definitely is usable in PvP in the early stages because she grants stun, turn meter, and speed up. But Indra is not really very useful in PvP at all. So Dianmu is slightly better, I would say, overall. But they are without a doubt S tier heroes. The only reason why they aren't in S+ tier is because they do not do well in PvP content. Next we have Dharma. And Dharma is the best free-to-play damage dealer option, and you get him from Elemental City. He does require high exclusives, about exclusive 4 before his damage starts getting good. But still a very solid option, and definitely deserving of B tier. He only really is good in PvE content. In PvP, he's basically never used. By the time you do get him at a high exclusive, if for some reason you do want to use him in PvP, you probably would have better options by then. So B tier, and if there weren't much better options such as Marie and Jingle Bell, he would be much higher, but I think this is appropriate for him. Next we have Hanya. And Hanya is a core part of the HP deduction team in PvE content. As for in PvP content, sorry, and as for PvE, she's definitely not as good, but still very usable. So if we just take a quick look of her skills, well, there's a whole bunch of stuff she does, and I don't want to go through everything individually, but she does do a lot of supporting buffs and debuffs of the enemy. And like I mentioned, best part about her is her use in the HP deduction team in PvP content, because when you record damage which exceeds your enemy's health, they will just instantly die. So a very good character to have, and definitely deserving of S tier simply because of her PvP capabilities itself, being a core member of HP deduction. Now we have Ans, and for Ans I'm actually going to put him S+ tier. So there are several reasons for this. First of all, he's strong in both PvP and PvE content. If you don't have Apsara, then Ans is basically the best damage recorder that you will have, and he does do quite a lot of damage on his own. So and a core part of direct damage and resonance teams as well. So the reason why he belongs in S+ tier instead of S is, as I said, he's good in both PvP and PvE content. And additionally, if you do not have a character like Marie, Ans is basically the only character which can beat an enemy Marie team in PvP. So this is the best option for you to beat PvP teams if you don't have your own Marie. You should know, if you've ever faced one, that Marie is so insanely oppressive in PvP that you basically need your own Marie to counter an enemy's one. But with Ans and a good build, it is possible for you to beat enemy Marie teams. So that alone, alongside his very strong PvE and PvP use cases in HP deduction team, definitely makes him deserving of S+ tier. Next we have Marcus, and Marcus is a very strong bleed damage dealer. She does lots of buffs and debuffs on the enemy, so we can take a quick look. Besides her own damage, which is very solid, you can see that she gets bleed up too, which is very useful for your bleed team. And the best part about her is all the effects that she does that scales with her effect hit. So her effect hit gives her self-mastery. You can see it reduces enemies' attack as well, and she in fact steals that attack. And when you have her exclusive tree, she does even more stuff, so she reduces enemy speed, which is very nice, and increases her own speed and attack. So all these things combined make her very good in both PvP and PvE. So as for PvP, she definitely isn't part of the meta 3v3 teams, but as a new player, this is still a very solid option for PvP if you do have her at exclusive tree. And even if you don't, she is a very strong PvE character at all stages of the game. Next we have Tyrell, and Tyrell is a S tier character. So Tyrell is used in PvP and PvE as well. She's a very strong internal injury character. If we take a look at her skills, she does inflict deep internal injury too, which is a buff that many internal injury teams are looking for. You primarily get it from Shaorin or Faxian, and having another character which does inflict it is very nice. Like I mentioned, her damage is good as well, and just an overall good character in both areas of content. But she isn't as significantly strong or as core of a character as compared to someone like Ans. So even though she's good in both areas of content, I will put her in S tier. Next we have Imakado, and I think Imakado, I'll put him in A tier. He is very strong in poison teams, and he does a lot of things which is good for the poison team. So if we take a look at Imakado, he has his poison up 2. He does pretty decent damage on his own. He has severe wound as well, and he has this vine set which increases your team's mastery. So he excels very strongly in poison PvE content. However, when it comes to PvP, he is not that strong, and so he belongs in A tier. Next we have Willa, and I think Willa belongs in S plus tier. So Willa, first of all, is good in PvE content. She does lots of damage on her own, and she buffs your team's, your fellow poison team's damage quite significantly through her various buffs and her turn meter related effects as well. And in PvP content, she does do a lot of CC and also once again her turn meter effects, which is obviously very strong in PvP content. So you can see she does so many debuffs on the enemy, she does good damage on her own, and she's just a really strong character in general in both areas of content. Definitely a core member of Poison Team, and definitely a very solid and usable character from the middle and even somewhat to the later stages of PvP as well. So definitely deserving of S plus tier. Next we have Chelsea, and I will put Chelsea in A tier. So Chelsea is the core, or rather the best damage dealer of the burn damage team, and even though she's the best burn damage dealer, the burn team itself isn't very strong, and that's why she belongs in A tier. She's mainly just there to buff your burn team's damage and do a lot of burn damage on her own, but when it comes to PvP content, she isn't very strong. Next we have Sotra, and Sotra belongs in A tier as well. She's fantastic for burn team as well. She does lots of damage, and she is a core member of the burn team as well by providing the shields every time she takes a turn. And she also does good damage through her Resonance Special 2, which does 300% damage to bosses. However, when it comes to PvP, even though there are some uses for her, especially if you don't have better options, she isn't a core member of any of the 3v3 meta teams, and so she belongs in A tier here. Just a good character overall, but not exceedingly strong in any particular area. Next we have Blaze, and Blaze belongs in S tier. She has uses in both PvP and PvE. In PvE, she's one of the strongest direct damage supports, second only to Jocelyn, who we'll cover soon. And for PvP, she is used in HP deduction team as well. She's recently found a place in that team, and just a very strong character overall in both areas of content, but not enough to break through to the S plus tier. Next we have Heart. Heart, once again, is a burn damage dealer, and compared to these two, he doesn't do as much damage. He does have a nice buff through his Deep Burn. So if you take a look at skills, he does inflict Deep Burn on his Special 2. However, he really doesn't do that much damage when we compare it to characters like Chelsea and Sotra. And one really limiting factor about him is that he takes extremely long to get his resonance status up, and that prevents him from doing his resonance special often, which really limits the damage that he does. So as cool as his design is, he does belong in B tier. Next we have Kalana, who's the most recent mythic hero, most recent legendary hero who has released, and without a doubt in my mind, she is S plus tier. And she's actually, I would say, borderline limited time hero level. She's really strong, her echo is really strong. She's a core part of the Poison Team now, and massively increases the Poison Team's survivability. Players have added her into their Poison Teams and are pushing maybe an additional 20-30 stages in Planar Rifts, and also making Purgatory much more easy as well. In PvP, she is starting to find a use as well in, I believe it's the HP deduction team, and she just increases the team's survivability, and that to me is insane because she is supposed to be even stronger in PvP when we eventually get more attribute steal characters to be used alongside her. So she's already being used in PvP content, and she's only going to become even stronger in PvP content as we get more attribute steal characters. So already a very strong character and has even more potential for the future. Next we have Jocelyn. Jocelyn I will put in S tier as well alongside Blaze. So Jocelyn is, I would say, much better for PvE content, however, as a direct damage support. However, she's not as strong as Blaze in PvP content. So they are both good characters overall, and they kind of take each other's slots. It just depends which area of content you are using them in. Next we have Valentina. Valentina is a bleed support, so even though she has the damage tag, as we can take a look here, she does have the damage tag, and for her to do a noticeable amount of damage, she does need exclusive 3 and above. However, the main part about her is her ability to buff your bleed team's damage. That's through this frost spell effect, where each layer increases your bleed team's damage by 3%, and this can stack up to 15 stacks or more. So obviously a 45% or more damage increase for your bleed team is very significant. Besides that, she does have some attack up to, which is good of course for bleed teams, and besides that, she does, like I said, does do some damage on her own. She is good for her own faction for damage. I believe now that Vasily has been introduced, she isn't as required for the Forgotten faction. But if you don't have Vasily, she is a very good free-to-play option as a damage dealer for Forgotten Abyss. And so she's in B tier. She is part of the core bleed team, but on her own she isn't that strong, and she's mainly playing a supporting role, and that's why she belongs in B tier. As for PvP content, she's not used at all as well. Next we have Grace. Grace is a bleed support, and she's really fallen out of meta. She's not really used anymore. However, she still is a solid option if you don't have better choices. So you can see over here what Grace does. She has this Spirit Feather and Gleaming Feather buffs, and this Spirit Feather increases your team's bleed damage. And besides that, she does grant Consolidation, which I guess is nice. But overall, she has been pretty much outclassed, but it's still a good budget option for your bleed teams. Next we have Surtur. Surtur I'll put in C tier as well. He is mainly used in PvP content. However, once again, he's really fallen out of meta. He's still pretty tanky and can be used especially in the earlier to mid stages of the game, but he doesn't have a slot in any of the 3v3 teams. And in fact, I don't believe he is used in any of the 5v5 teams as well. So a character which is really fallen out of use, but still a solid option in the early game. Next we have Vasily, and Vasily definitely belongs in S tier. So Vasily is extremely strong in PvE content. He's basically the best bleed damage dealer now, better than Lance. However, when it comes to PvP, even though he himself counters Lance through his bleed immunity for the team, he definitely isn't as strong overall in PvP content compared to Lance. Lance is definitely much more oppressive than Vasily in PvP content, so Vasily only gets to be S tier because he isn't that great in PvP. Next we have Freud, and Freud is a poison support who belongs in B tier. So Freud is a character which isn't used as much now. He still definitely has his users. I believe he's still being used in Planar Rifts, if we can take a quick look. He still is being used, as you can see. But he is slowly falling out of the meta. Not to say that he's a weak character by any means, but he also is very reliant on the team that you have surrounding him. He's not good as a standalone character, which is why he belongs in B tier. He doesn't really have a use in PvP content, only PvE, and he is a character who is very hard to build because of this ally protection buff, so he takes a lot of damage that your enemy is supposed to take instead, and that means that he needs to be built very well in order to survive a lot of attacks from the enemy. And next we have Lance. So I'm sure Lance is a familiar name for all players, new or old, and Lance definitely belongs in S+ tier. Well, there's not much to say that I believe you guys wouldn't know. Lance is fantastic in both PvP and PvE. In PvE, he does a lot of damage. He's the second highest bleed damage dealer after Vasily. And he does also have a lot of turn meter related effects through his pursue and attack. So whenever his bleed triggers, he reduces the enemy turn meter, which is very useful in dungeons. And the same effect is very useful in PvP content as well. If you build him with very high attack, he will deal lots of damage to the enemy before they even get to take a turn, and that can be very oppressive in the early to mid stages of the game. So now in the meta 3v3 team, he doesn't really have a slot anymore, but of course that's only talking about the late game. For the average player, he will be extremely strong even to the mid to late game, and definitely better than Vasily when it comes to PvP, and strong in both areas of content overall, which is why he belongs in S+ tier. Next we have O'Grady's, and O'Grady's I'm going to put in the same tier as Valentina. She is a burn support, but and increases the burn damage of your team and provides other supporting capabilities, but standalone she isn't that great, and she's primarily PvE only. And as I mentioned earlier, the burn team as a whole isn't very strong, so she is deserving of B tier. In fact, I'm gonna find let's find one more character over here. And the character I'm looking for is Marmello. So okay, we have Marmello over here. And I'm gonna rank all these three together at once because first of all, they're all Elemental City characters. And second of all, they're all mainly supporting characters which have primarily PvE use only and not very good at PvP. So just to cover Marmello quickly, he's a HP burn support and does lots of good HP burn related buffs. So if we take a look at Marmello, he has this deep HP burning too, which I believe he's basically the only character that you will want to use that has this. And he increases your team's HP burning damage as well. He triggers HP burning effect as well. And on his own, he does do a little bit of damage, not as significant as the main damage dealers such as Irato, but definitely still a noticeable amount of damage. He grants your team a shield, although it is somewhat situational based on your team's health. And overall, just a very solid character. But like I mentioned, he isn't a character that you want to use by himself. You do need a good HP burn team to support him, and he is only really used in PvE content. Next we have Jubei. So Jubei is the newest character which is coming out on Friday. So as the time that I'm making this video, he actually isn't out yet. But I will rank him based on where I think he will lie, and that is S tier. So in fact, he could very possibly be in S+ tier, but like I mentioned, he isn't out and we haven't been able to test him, so I'm going to put him on the safe side of S tier. And so he's very strong for internal injury teams. I believe he's out now in game, so we can see that he inflicts... He does a whole bunch of internal injury damage, and I believe on his exclusive, he increases your team's internal injury damage quite significantly, so up to 30%. And this is just for PvE. So for PvP, he will fit quite well into an Attribute Steal team, which will be used alongside Kalana and any future heroes that release with Attribute Steal tag. And when he's in a Attribute Steal team, he does have the potential to do a lot of damage. I'm not going to go through his skills, I've made a video for that already, which I'll link in the description. But he's able to put taunt on the enemy, and he has so many different effects that he's just able to attack the enemy with taunt so many times that they'll basically just take a whole bunch of damage and die. Of course, we will need to do some testing, but I do believe he has a lot of potential for PvP content as well, which is why he belongs in S tier. Next we have Penny, and I think I will put Penny in S tier. I was thinking of putting her in A tier, but Penny is a core hero in many poison team lineups by giving speed up, and she also inflicts freeze as well, which is very useful. So we can take a look at Plainaris and see if she's being used. So yeah, there are still lots of teams using Penny. She does alright damage on her own. The main part of her kit is definitely her speed up 2 and the lots of CC that she does. And when it comes to PvP, she is a core hero of the CC team. That's because of her exclusive 2 over here, her exclusive 2, where you can see that stun, hypnotize, and freeze inflicted on enemies cannot be cleansed. So this is a really significant thing, and one of the most important parts of the CC team, which makes her meta in 3v3 teams. Next we have Chardonnel, and Chardonnel is deserving of B tier. So he is still a very, very solid bleed support. He has lots of buffs that the bleed team needs, being a shield, speed up 2, and he also does deep bleed 2 as well, I believe, or bleed up 2. Yeah, heavy bleed 2. So heavy bleed 2, speed up 2, and just overall a very fantastic bleed support. The only reason why he's in B tier is because he's outclassed by Oliver, who I will put in A tier. So Oliver is just strictly better than Chardonnel in basically every way. If we take a look at Oliver, he has the exact same effects but better. So he has not just a shield, but he does a lot of healing as well. And his shield is a different kind of shield which I believe stacks with a regular one, so also much better. He grants Speed Up 2, which is the same as Chardonnel, Heavy Bleed 2, which is the same as Chardonnel, and he does Mastery Up 2, which is very, very significant, which Chardonnel does not have. So next we have Reyna. So for Reyna, I'm putting her in S tier. So Reyna is a fantastic shooter. She's amazing for resonance teams in PvP content. I don't believe she's used in bleed teams because we have Nicolith as a shooter and does a lot more than Reyna. But for resonance teams, she is still probably the best shooter that you can use. And we can take a look in game very quickly. If we take a look at Planar Rifts, and we go to Resonance. Okay, so Nicolith has kind of taken a slot. As for Bleed, Nicolith also has taken a slot, but you definitely shouldn't count her out. She's still a fantastic team, a fantastic character to use in PvP content with her very strong shields, CC, and heal. And Reyna also is used in PvP, where she is a core member of the CC team as well in 3v3. So definitely deserving of S tier. Next we have Hogarth, and Hogarth I'm going to put in B tier. So he's actually one of the weaker new releases that we've had, and he is first of all very difficult to build, requiring extremely high defense, but even beyond that, he's not used in PvE at all, and even in PvP he isn't really used in any of the meta top 3 teams. So he's only going to get B tier. Next we have Kratos, and Kratos probably lies somewhere between B and C tier. I'm going to put him at the bottom of B tier. So he has a really cool mechanic where he does both bleed and internal injury damage. However, he isn't really useful in any area of content. So he needs the battle to go for a very long time before his damage starts ramping up. And unfortunately, in most cases, there simply isn't enough time before he is able to reach that stage where he does good damage. He does have, however, the Attribute Steal tag, which means that he does have potential for the future in PvP, where we do have an Attribute Steal team with Kalana. So there is potential for him to be higher in the future, but where he is now, he's really not very strong at all, and probably only in B or C tier. Next we have Marvilla, and I'm going to put Marvilla in A tier. She is a very strong HP burn support, and there isn't any better option than her as of now. You can take a quick look at her skills together, and there's a lot of stuff which are very important for the HP burn team, because the HP burn team does lack a lot of survivability, and that's what Marvilla does. So she does, she has a shield, she cleanses DOT, and she has this ally protection, which means that she is able to take part of the damage dealt to the rest of your team. This does mean, however, she does need to have a very strong build in order to make her good, but if you're able to achieve that, she is a very, very strong character for the HP burn team. And she also has these buffs as well to increase your team's damage. Next we have Shaorin, and Shaorin I'll put in A tier. She's fantastic in both PvP and PvE. PvP wise, she isn't used that much, but she still has her users. But her main strength is in PvE, where she is both a strong damage dealer and a support for PvE teams. She most importantly has her deep internal injury buff, which she inflicts on enemies, which increases internal injury damage of your team by 50%. So very strong damage dealer in PvE content, and the deep internal injury buff is very important. Next we have Anhee-Jin, and Anhee-Jin belongs in B tier. So I'm actually going to put her in B tier with Bobo N over here, because they are very similar. They both are basically just pure HP burn damage dealers. They are the strongest non-limited time hero HP burn damage dealer options. And the main difference is that Bobo N does more damage, but Bobo N only does single target damage, whereas Anhee-Jin does AoE team-wide damage. One notable thing I'll mention about Bobo N, however, is that she has a very unique buff. So that's this Mastery Res down 2, and she's the only character in the game besides Jubei, who's about to release, that has this Mastery Res down 2 debuff, and this is a very strong debuff to inflict on enemies, and very exclusive to have. So I thought it was worth mentioning. Next we have Popper. Popper I'm going to put in B tier. He used to be extremely strong in PvP content. He doesn't really have much PvE use. However, recently he has fallen out of the meta. He also requires really high speed in order to be used. in the late game you do need him to have 3.3k, 3.4k speed, and in the past he was one of the defining characters for the meta PvP team. However, like I said, he's really fallen out of meta, and he still can be used if you don't have better options. But since he's not really a core member of any PvP team anymore, he is only in B tier. And I'm gonna also put Atkin in B tier alongside him in the same time, because Atkin is another character that is primarily used in PvP as well, and used to be a core part of PvP teams. However, she's also another character that has fallen out of the meta as well. Next we have Agatha. I'll put her in A tier. So Agatha, since her buffs actually has become very strong, at exclusives 4 and 5, she is a character which you can use in the HP deduction team. And not just that, she is actually a very solid direct damage dealer for free-to-play players. And she is very strong for Faction Abyss as well, for her own Faction Abyss, which is a pretty difficult one. So her Faction Abyss is Eternal Sect, and there aren't many options, so having her is definitely a very good thing to have. The only downside I would say is that to get her to exclusive 4 and especially exclusive 5, you do need to be a late game player, so it is difficult for you to reach the exclusive where she becomes very useful. Next we have Dakota, and Dakota I'll put in D tier. So she's a poison support, but she has been very heavily outclassed. If you have her and don't have better options, then you can use her. I'm not going to go through her skills because she, like I said, she's just really outclassed and only really deserving of D tier and nothing higher. Next we have Rister, and Rister is a very strong direct damage support. He has the Alliance buff, which allows your ally with the highest attack to pursue an attack every single time Rister uses his basic. He grants attack up 2, and with his Alliance buff he also gives your ally with the highest attack, I believe, up to crit damage up 5. He gives crit damage increased by 50%. So very nice buffs to have and very good to have in your team. He's amazing as a support for Wuthering Coast and basically anywhere where you want to use a direct damage dealer. The only reason why he's in B tier is because there are better options. If you have Beatrix, then you would use her over Rister. And Rister on his own doesn't really do much. You do need a strong direct damage dealer to use alongside him. He's not really good in PvE content. In PvP content, he is very good in PvE content, so that's why he's deserving of B tier. Next we have Elise, and for Elise, I'll put her in A tier. So she is very strong in CC team in PvP, but when it comes to PvE content, she isn't as strong and doesn't have as much use. So her main use is primarily as a character in the CC team in 3v3 content. Next we have Frank, and Frank is just he's a character which doesn't really do much, to be honest. So we can take a look at his skills, and he kind of just does a whole bunch of stuff, but he doesn't do anything particularly well. He's a direct damage dealer, but he isn't used in direct damage teams as a support or as a DPS. And he is somewhat stat hungry. He needs crit rate, crit damage, effect hit, and he obviously as a damage dealer he needs some attack as well and some speed which you can give him. So he's not easy to build, and the payoff for building him really isn't very high. And he doesn't deserve a high ranking at all, so I'm putting him in C tier. Next we have Ronai, and Ronai I believe is deserving of either B or C tier. I'll put her in B tier because we do have Popper and Atkins here as well. So Ronai is primarily used for PvP content. At exclusive 3 she does a lot of turn meter related effects, I believe. So we can take a quick look. You can see that she does a lot of heal, and yes, she does have some turn meter related effects at exclusive 2 and exclusive 1. So a decent budget option in PvP content. However, she has been outclassed and not really used anymore, but a good option if you don't have anything better. Next we have Faxian. Faxian is a very solid support for internal injury teams. He has deep internal injury too. He has a resurrect. He has lots of heals, and overall a very solid character. I do believe he's going to be outclassed by Jubei in internal injury teams. However, he's still a very solid option in many PvE content such as 7 Sages, Planar Rifts, and potentially some use in Purgatory as well. However, like I said, I believe he's going to be outclassed, and on his own, he's not a very strong character, so B tier. Next, we have Narc, and Narc I'm going to put in B tier. He's a bleed support who's outclassed but still very usable. And the main issue I have with him is he is extremely stat hungry. So if you take a look at his page, you can see he needs HP, defense, effect hit, and mastery. And as a support, he does need a lot of speed as well. So the normal player and even mid to late game players are going to struggle to get all these stats that he wants. And even when you do build him, he is a decent support to have, but not anything very significant. He has this increase in mastery for your team. He has this Raven's Feather, which is also very good to increase bleed damage dealt. And he also has bleed up too. So these are all effects that are very good. He actually does a lot of different stuff. The only issue is being able to build him well to properly make use of this character is very difficult. And he is outclassed by better bleed supports such as Oliver, and even Chardonnel is potentially better as well. Next we have Dez and Boffany. So these characters come hand in hand, and they are both direct damage supports. So if you take a look at each of their exclusives, they do require one another to be in the same team. So you can see for Dez requires Boffany to be alive in the team, and for Boffany you will see the opposite where she requires Dez to be alive in the team. So when used together, they are actually very solid direct damage supports. However, there simply are many better options for the direct damage team nowadays. Like the ones you can see here, I've already mentioned. We have Rister, although you can use these two alongside Rister. But we also have characters like Jocelyn and Blaze who are far better and only take one character slot as opposed to two to become usable. Next we have Space, and I'll put Space in D tier. Once again, just because a character in D tier doesn't mean they are bad. In fact, Space is one of the best characters you get in the early stages of the game. She will be useful in both PvP and PvE in the early stages of the game. The only issue is that she gets outclassed pretty quickly. One notable thing which makes her less strong than she could be is she only gives speed up 1, and as speed is very important in this game, you will very quickly try and use a character which has speed up 2 instead of speed up 1. She does have some very nice turn meter related effects, so she's able to start her turn quicker than most other heroes through this increased self turn meter buff. And when she gets to act first, she can then use her special 4, which increases your team's turn meter by 20%. So in the early game, this can be very useful in PvP in order to take turns before your enemy. So when you attack first, you most likely can actually kill your enemies in that same turn, because in the early game, enemy teams have really poor defenses. And she does have one very niche case even in the late game, so I believe it's one of the Elemental City stages, or one of the Endless Cloister stages. I believe it's either 36 or 37, where there's a chi strategy with her where you make use of Space's basic attack, and you use other characters such as Ben Austin and Santa or Big Jack, and the idea of that team is simply to keep using Space's basic attack so that the enemy boss will not be able to take a turn. So you will be able to win the fight before the enemy can do anything. So that's just one niche case that she has, but besides that, she's good in the early stages of the game in both areas of content. Next we have Donald Rebelli, and Donald Rebelli will have to go into C tier. Unfortunately, I really like his design, but he just isn't that strong. He's not very good in PvE. His only use in PvE really is for his faction, and even then there are better options. And as for PvP, which is actually supposed to be his main use, he's just simply outclassed and not very strong at all. So he only really deserves C tier. Next we have Moxie. And Moxie is a character that many players see in the early game, because I believe there's a $1 deal that you can buy to get Moxie at the very start of the game. And she is very good in the campaign, but past the early stages of the game, she does become quite bad. So in the early stages of the game, like I said, she's really good in campaign, especially at exclusive 1. And in PvP, she can be very annoying for new players because she can attack several times before the enemy even attacks. So if she gets a chance to kill one of your allies, she pretty much wipes your whole team. I do remember a lot of new players commenting and thinking that she's extremely broken, but the truth is, past the early game, she becomes really weak and very, very quickly outclassed. So she belongs in D tier. And now we have Mamuk. Mamuk is a very solid defensive option, especially in the earlier stages of the game. Even past that, maybe towards the middle stages of the game, he can be used in contents such as 3v3 in PvP. And even in PvE, if you do not have a better option, he still is very solid. He's very strong defensively and can be used in both areas of the game in the early stages. So I'll put him in C tier. For Nasil, I'll put him in C tier as well. Nasil is very strong in the early stages of the game once again, even to the middle stages, and some late game players also use him while they don't have a better option. But his main use is for CC related teams in PvP. So at exclusive 1, when the round starts, he will instantly freeze the enemies, or at least try to. If you have high effect hit on him, he will freeze all the enemies. And if you use that alongside a character like Penny, it is very oppressive to face. So a character which is very strong in PvP content, not really any use in PvE, and if you build him well, he will definitely work well even from the early game to the middle to later stages of the game. And finally, we have Catherine, we have the last two heroes. Second last, we have Catherine. Catherine I'll put in C tier. She's a very good shielder. She has counter attack with her shields, which is a very strong buff in the early stages of the game and help increases your damage quite significantly. So we have the counter attack over here. She has a 60% shield at exclusive 2, which is very good. She has a heal. I believe it's on her passive. She has consolidation, and I do believe she has a effect which removes debuffs as well. Yeah, so she actually does a lot of stuff for shielder. And what's great about her is you get her at a very early stage of the game, and she will very quickly become one of your best shielders alongside Nordak in the early stages. So very, very strong character to have, especially in the early stages. Good in both PvP and PvE early on, and deserving of C tier. And lastly, we have Adeline. Adeline is a HP burn damage dealer, and definitely one on the weaker end. I think she is slightly stronger than Hezonja. Someone might have to correct me on that, but they are on similar levels, definitely below the levels of Bobo and Han Hee-jin. But like I said, she is a very solid budget option. I do think she needs her exclusive in order to start dealing damage. If we take a quick look, I think she does need exclusive 3. Yeah, so exclusive 3 increases her damage quite significantly. And before that, she isn't very useful. So like I said, just a very budget option for HP burn teams and D tier. I will move Space. I was thinking about it as I was talking. I will move Space to C tier because she does fall in line with characters like Catherine and Mamuk, where they have very strong users in PvP and PvE in the early stages of the game. However, these characters fall off pretty quickly once you get better choices. So yeah, this is all the legendary heroes or usable legendary heroes ranked. And let me just take one quick look at what I've ranked and whether I'm happy with it. And let's start from the bottom. So a D tier will mainly be very budget options or characters which fall out of meta very early into the game. I'm happy with this D tier list. C tier is either characters which are still very usable from the early game to perhaps the mid game stages, or budget options while you don't have better choices. So budget options like Des and Boffany, Grace, and also characters which fall off early. Like I said, we have Space, Catherine, and Mamuk over here. So I think this is solid for C tier. B tier is usually characters which still have relevance even in today, even in sub-meta teams. However, some of them will be slightly outclassed, so we have characters like Chardonnel and MacD who are slightly outclassed. And others are characters which only excel in one area of content, so these 3 characters over here only good in PvE. Or characters which on their own don't do much and have heavy reliance on the rest of your team. So characters like Rista over here, strong support but useless without a strong direct damage dealer. For A tier, most of it are characters which are still used today, and very strong characters but only in specific scenarios. So yeah, this is pretty accurate. We have characters like Elise mainly for CC team, Shaorin good in both areas but not exceptional anymore. We have Chelsea, main burn damage dealer but basically just only does damage, so pretty accurate. We have S tier where they either excel really well in one particular area of the game, or good in both areas, or a core member of a certain meta team. So characters like Penny is meta in 3v3 CC team, Diemo, Indra, who are fantastic in PvE but not used at all in PvP. And lastly, we have S+ tier characters who are strong in basically every area of the game. And yeah, I mean, I think this is a pretty accurate S+ tier. If you have faced or if you've used these characters, you know all four of these characters are extremely strong. So yeah, I think I'm quite happy with how this tier list ended up. I think it's quite accurate, and yeah, let me know what you think. Like I mentioned, this tier list takes into account both PvP and PvE users combined. So it is somewhat subjective, and I'm sure some of you guys will feel that a certain character will belong in a higher or lower tier. If you feel that way, just let me know in the comments and I'll be happy to discuss with you about that topic. I don't believe there's any explicit right or wrong answer when it comes to these tier lists. Of course, some characters like Lance, you objectively have to agree is strong, but whether you feel they are stronger or weaker than what I've shown here, of course, it can be very objective and depends on the situation you are in. But yeah, I think this is a pretty accurate final tier list that we have. So yeah, I hope this was useful for you guys. If it is, leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.